If you grew up in the 1960s, the title Fractured Fairy Tales conjures up memories of the Rocky and Bullwinkle show and Edward Everett Horton reading stories that weren't quite as we remembered them.
And of course, everybody had some turnips. Everybody except King Midas.
Write Out Loud serves up its own version of Fractured Fairy Tales, says artistic director Veronica Murphy. And they're tailored to go with Cygnet Theatre's Shock-Headed Peter.
It's a book of poetry that a German doctor wrote for his children in the 19th century. It's all about children, if they do wrong, it's sort of moralistic, so if you suck your thumb, then they're gonna come and chop your thumbs off, or if you play with those matches, you're gonna catch on fire and burn up.
Shock-Headed Peter reminds us of the dark origins of some early children's literature, and Fractured Fairy Tales plays off of that, says Walter Ritter.
But instead of going back to the source material, contemporary writers have taken their own twists back.
Ritter, who co-founded Write Out Loud, reads from Edward Gorey's ABC poem, The Gashly Crumb Tinies.
N is for Neville, who died of ennui. O is for Olive, run through with an awl. P is for Prue, trampled flat in a brawl.
That is probably the one most tied in theme to Shock-Headed Peter, because it's very specifically about the demise of children.
But there's also a new take on the Three Little Pigs called A Tale of Diminutive Swine.
And so, collectively agreed but individually impelled, the diminutive swine set about each to erect for himself an abode.
David Fenner's memorized performance is not typical of what Write Out Loud does. Murphy describes what they do as a live theatrical performance that just isn't a play.
But one of the things that's very similar in directing a play is that when an actor is reading, they have to embody the character that they're reading, just like an actor in a play does.
But in a way that engages the audience to a greater degree, because they have to bring all of the imagery that's being read to life for themselves.
Then steel thyself, little pig, forthwith shall I endeavor by employing means both huffing and puffing to dismantle yon Flaxen fortress flat.
But that's easy when the readers are as expressive as Fenner and Linda Libby. Libby reads a version of Cinderella from the ugly stepsister's point of view.
Have you ever noticed how history favors the lookers? Henry VIII, bad press. Richard Lionheart, good press.
Rachel Esther Tate reads from Kelly Link's The Fairy Handbag about a grandmother who has an entire Eastern European village living in her purse.
And the people under the hill told her to kill a black dog and skin it, and use the skin to make a purse big enough to hold a chicken, an egg, and a cooking pot. So she did. And then the people under the hill made the inside of the purse big enough to hold all of the village, and all of the people under the hill, and the mountains, and the forests, and the seas, and the rivers, and the lakes, and the orchards, and the sky, and the stars, and the spirits, and fabulous monsters, and sirens, and dragons, and dryads, and mermaids.
The reading of literature aloud is a wonderful way to remind adults and introduce young people to the enjoyment of good writing.
And the sheer delight of listening to someone read you a story aloud.
We, the forgotten sisters, soon to become the ugly sisters, the weird sisters, and the sisters of the Divine Comedy, rolled on into legend, picking up blemishes like lint along the way.
Beth Accomando, KPBS News.